Is there a systematic way to learn jazz chords and jazz voicings and how to use them? This week, I'm answering questions about my upcoming minor blues chord substitutions workshop, which is taking place this Saturday, the 23rd. And of course, you can learn more about that at the link below or the link on screen if you'd like to sign up. But today's question is about just that. Like, if you're going to learn chords and chord substitutions, is there any logic to it, or is it as random and chaotic as it looks when you watch someone do it? That's what we're going to talk about right now. So the answer, of course, is yes, there is a systematic way to go about learning new chords and how to use them on chord progressions. But in order to do so, you have to work backwards from what you see to the underlying bones of what's going on. When you watch someone comping or playing accompaniment on a jazz tune or even a blues with a jazz flavor, it can look random, almost like they're soloing, and you just have no idea like what scales they're using. You can watch someone comp and just be like, wait, what are those chords and what's going on? But let's take it from the basics and build it up. There is a logic to what's going on. And if you start with the chords you know, like the 1 and the 4 and the 5, and understand the logic of how you connect those chords and how you swap in different versions of those chords, then what looks random and chaotic can start to seem pretty logical and pretty ordinary. Let's take a really simple example. So the tune St. Louis Blues is basically a 12-bar blues with a bridge. And the bridge is in a minor key, and it really only uses 3 chords. The bridge sounds like this. Right? There's not a lot of chords. It's really just 1 and 5, and maybe you get this 2 chords stuck in there. But we're in G, and so for starters, the default chord for a minor chord, the default minor voicing in a minor key, in a jazz flavored version of a song, is this G minor 6 chord with the root and the 6th and the flat third. And the default 5 chord is the exact same shape, just up 2 frets. Only now this is functioning as a D7 chord. Here's the 5th, and here's the 3rd, and here's the flat 7. So if we start off with this, we're just going to have 2 bars of G minor and then 2 bars of D7. That's the first 4 bars of the bridge. Then another 2 bars of the D7, and then a couple of beats of G minor, and then a couple of beats of A7, which is the root, flat 7, and 3rd, and the D7 for a bar. Now, it's true, you need to know these voicings and maybe have a little bit of that kind of strumming technique worked out, which I've talked about in some other recent videos. But once you know that, you're playing with that swing feel, you're playing jazz chords, and you're really just playing 1 and 5. So what happens is there's a whole sort of systematic way of connecting up and swapping out other versions of the same chords. So I could have played those first 4 bars like this. Instead, and there I'm changing chords every 2 beats. And you might cry foul and go, hey, wait a second. You start off on the G minor, you go to the D7 right away, and then what's this funny chord that looks hard, and around and around. What's going on is first the idea that besides playing this version of G, you could also play this version of G. So G minor here with the root and 6th and flat 3rd, and then G minor here with the flat 3rd, root, and 5th. And if you hear people throwing around the word inversions, this is all they mean, is you've basically inverted the original order of the notes, so you've got the same notes, but they're just stacked up in a different way. So we could go from here to here, and it means the same thing. And then the other, so that's one idea, which is that you can have more than one version of the same chord. And then the other idea is that you can pass between different chords in the key as long as you come out in the right place. So if you were thinking, well, I've got 2 bars of G minor, here's option 1, stay on the G minor 6. Option 2 might be go to the other G minor voicing for the second bar. And then option 3 might be, well, we're in G, this is the 1 chord. The 5 chord always leads to the 1 chord, so what if I go from 1 to 5, just for a couple beats, and then get back to the 1 chord? So here's option 3. And then what if we combined option 2 and option 3 and go from here to the 5, which is supposed to resolve back to 1, and then go to the other minor chord, the other G minor, and then back to 5. So now we're about to go in the 3rd bar to the D. So you might actually just want to jump back down to G minor again. We still get the same effect, which is a new chord every 2 beats. And then it's time for the D chord. And what can we do there? Well, we could do something simple like go up by a half step and come back down. And if you want to know why that works, the simple answer is because it sounds good and everybody does it. The more complicated answer is when you go here, this E flat 7 chord with the 5th and the flats, the 5th, the 3rd, and the flat 7 is actually swapping in for this A7 chord. Why is A7 okay? Because it's the 5 of the 5. If you're in the key of D, this A is the 5 chord of D7. So we could play, that's option 1. Now option 2 is to say, hey, this chord is almost the same as this chord. This E flat with the 5th in the bass is like playing an A7 chord, only with the flat 9 of A7 in the bass, which is one of those weird altered tones you sometimes hear about. So that makes this chord, the E flat chord, a nice substitution for the A7. In fact, it has an official name. It is the tritone substitution for A7 because its root, if you played it, is a tritone away from A. So we can play, this is like going D7, the 5 of D7, which wants to resolve to D7. And then the third option is to go, oh, well, D7 is the 5 of G, and A minor is the 2 of G. So we could play D7, A minor 7 to D7. And that's basically saying, we're eventually going to get to G, so we're going to play 2 and then 5, but we're just going to kind of fool around with the order we play them in. And finally, we can combine those options, and we can start to move those around however we want. So now, just with those different possibilities, all of which we've kind of explained away as being reasonable, we can take this 2 bars of G minor and 2 bars of D7 and turn it into everything's got an explanation. Everything's built on the bones of the 1 and the 5 chord, but we're doing a lot more to sort of be creative and color around the basic outline of the chord progression. So that's the basic idea. The rest, as the Rabbi Hillel once said, is commentary. If you understand what the bones of the chord progression are, and if you understand how to connect up different inversions of the same chord, and how to move between chords in the same key, like between 1 and 5, or between 5 and its 5 chord, then you're not just learning a bunch of random chord voicings and memorizing how to put them together, but you're taking the basic structure of the chord progression and dressing it up with a series of moves that work for reasons that you actually understand. This is exactly what I'm going to be teaching in much more detail in my 2-hour live online workshop this weekend called Minor Blues Chord Substitutions. We're going to take the minor blues 12-bar chord progression and build it up step by step just like this, so that for every step of the way you understand exactly what each chord is doing there, how to play it, what it's doing, and why it's working the way that it works. And once we've done that on the 12-bar blues, we'll look at some ways to memorize different ways to play through that same chord progression, so that just like soloing, you have a vocabulary of moves, different ways to get from chord to chord, different ways to thread your way through the 12-bar blues. And then finally, we'll go and apply that to some different 8-bar blues tunes just to get an understanding of how to translate that idea from the 12-bar blues to other songs that you might want to play. If that sounds like something you'd like to check out, go to the link below or the link on screen to learn more and sign up. If you've got a question or a comment about today's lesson, please leave it down below. I would love to hear from you. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.